This week, Koom interviews Wahab Algarmi, author of Almost Sunset, a graphic novel about a Muslim American boy's search for balance between his family traditions and the demands of life in middle school. Koom and Wahab discuss their international family backgrounds as well as the merits or demerits of 1990s image comics. First, as always, I'd like to thank our patrons for helping to keep the show going. You can pitch in by pledging at least $2 a month at patreon.com/deconcomics. This is Tim, and this is Deconstructing Comics.
It's Koom in Toronto with Wahab Algarmi, and he is the author of the graphic novel for kids, Almost Sunset, which he has told me has nothing to do with the Ethan Hawke, Julie Delpy series of films, which is fantastic, by the way, which is probably good because those themes are probably much too adult for kids, no matter how sophisticated a kid might be. I've had a blast reading it. I know Wahab from Facebook, and this is a pleasure to kind of like sit down and actually have a long, in-depth conversation with him. Do you want to say something about yourself? And
yeah, I've been looking forward to this too. Yeah, I think we met through like a Facebook group.
Probably the Miller group.
Probably Frank Miller or Dave Mazzucchelli.
Yeah.
One of those two groups. But it seems like we had like common interests, and I think we just hit it off on Facebook.
I don't know if you remember, but we actually exchanged books in the mail.
Yeah. I think you sent me a digital like something, but I sent you.
I'm so sorry. If you want, I will send you a physical copy.
No, fine.
No. I mean, that gives you the burden of having to read it, so maybe you don't want that. But tell me, what was the title of those issues you sent me? They were girls in a school.
Society of Unordinary Young Ladies. That was my joke take on Alan Moore's The League of The League of Unordinary Gentlemen. I'm getting mixed
extraordinary gentlemen. Yeah,
I'm getting it mixed up with my own book. Oh man, I'm getting old.
Yeah, me too. And what I ended up doing after I read them was I gave them to my students.
Oh, awesome.
That was years ago. I think that was like 10 years ago.
No, it wasn't that long ago. Couldn't have been that long ago. Please don't tell me.
It was, I think, at least 7 years ago, because I've been living in the place I am now for about 7.5 years.
Okay, we've been Facebook friends that long? Possibly. I don't know.
Remember COVID just really protracted things, so I think so. Do you remember when you created those books?
It's been a while. I did like 10 issues.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like maybe like a book a year or something like that. Me and my friends would go down to San Diego every year with a new book.
When did you start doing those books?
Oh man, no, that I don't remember. It was a long time, way over 10 years ago.
That's what I'm telling you. So I think you sent me maybe, let's say, 5 issues. And
okay.
So 5 issues in might have been about 10 years ago, right?
Maybe, yeah. It's been a minute though. I created it a long time ago though, like maybe 2007 or something like that. If I'm remembering it right, but it did well. I was so happy with it, but it was like an IP nightmare of like all these different characters, and I couldn't sell it. But I was happy because people liked it, and I was just, I happily gave it away to like strangers on the internet that I met, and I would mail it to people because I was really proud of it. So. Yeah, it was a fun book for sure.
How did you go from that to Almost Sunset? Was there something else in between?
There's been some stuff in between that, like little things here and there. I have this really small palindrome comic that I did where it's like the same like art right at the middle. It folds out, or it mirrors itself. There's a giant splash page that's symmetrical. And then it's the story. It's like I don't know. It's called Hotel Noon. Like you don't know if it's day or night or whatever. And this guy goes in and he's like, it's a noir type thing, Hitchcockian. He like killed his wife and he's got her on this bed in a hotel and he just keeps her there because he loves her so much. And you don't know if he's coming or going, like if he's staying with her or leaving. super adult, right? But the story like unfolds like he's going in and then he's leaving the hotel, but it's the same thing mirrored. I did that with another friend a while back. I did some educational comics for some nonprofits out here in Oakland. I've done a bunch of just random little things, but Society was my favorite thing. And then Almost Sunset came out of people asking around about Muslim authors that they know. And then a friend of mine connected me to his agent, and that agent was like, "I'm looking for a Muslim author. Do you think you can do a book?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll do anything. I just love making comics." So,
So when
you
you
know,
met the agent, you didn't even have the book done. It
no,
was just an idea in the wind that you developed.
yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Did the agent have any input as to what you should do, as to what might be more marketable, or was it just purely like your own vision and your own labor of love as to what you would do?
Yeah, we did. Like, I was just wanting to do a kid that's Muslim, and then just have them have an adventure. But he really wanted to focus on some aspect of religion within the story, so he was pushing it more towards Ramadan. And the thing, I was like, everybody knows what that is, but really, honestly, like, if anything, I think he was absolutely right, because the last 2 years have been a shit show for Muslims. I'm sorry, but it's just been horrible being Muslim in the States. It's like, really, like, you guys, don't know anything yet, or we're just retreading everything that happened when I was a kid. So I feel like as I was working on this book, like, I realized, like, this book is important, and like, minority stories and immigrant stories are always going to be important. Just marginalized people in general, like, their stories are always going to be important. You keep thinking like, oh, we've reached a point where we're good, and it's really like, are we? We're always. I feel like there's always going to be this reminder, because I've seen some really great Arabs in the last few years. Like, we've had some really great shows and books and things. Mo Amer has a show called Mo, which is fantastic, on Netflix. It's about his immigrant experience as a Palestinian in America, and what he has to do to get a passport. It's so ridiculously good. There's another Egyptian show called Rami. It's just about him being a Egyptian American. And I'm seeing all these shows. I'm like, Arabs are here. We made it. And then something like, what happened. And I'm like, oh, I'm still working on something important. I still need people to know. We need people to know. We need to get our stories out there. So, it really changed throughout me working on it. Before, it was just like a fun little thing. And then it was like, oh, I was stressing out. Like, I'm representing my culture, my faith, my family. I was stressed out making it.
I
Yeah.
can relate to everything you just said, including both the difficulty of doing it as well as the need to do it, because, like you said, things never really change that much, and it's always a push. Have you heard of, and I don't want to get the title wrong, but I think it's called The Arab of the Western World. It's a series of autobiographical graphic novels that I think are originally done in French, but have been translated. They're very popular. Does this ring a bell to you at all?
You're talking about, I just read it. The Arab of the Future. Is that it?
Yeah, yeah. The Arab of the Future. Now, is that the name of the collection, or is it normally like
Uh,
a? Because
you
there's
know
like
what? I didn't
volumes, and I read some of them, but not all of them.
I didn't see it as a collection. It seems like it's like one large graphic novel. It's done by this guy is really interesting. And I'm not promoting this book. It's really weird that I just happened to have it next to me. I just
Mhm,
finished
mhm.
reading. When I finished Almost Sunset, a lot of people were like, "Oh, you should check this out. You should check that out." And somebody recommended The Arab of the Future, and I found out about it. I read, and the author's name is Riyadh Sattouf. I think, if that's how I'm
That's
saying it.
him. That's him. Yeah.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about him is he was a cartoonist at Charlie Hebdo,
Mhm.
and everybody knows, if you're watching deconstructing comics, you probably know what happened at Charlie Hebdo magazine, and that was I think I read he had just left right before that had happened, and I don't think he ever commented on it much, but The interesting thing about it is like this book doesn't really shine a good light on Arabs or Arab culture, right? It's like the really nitty gritty, dirty parts. And I was like, I'm not gonna buy this book. I did check it out of the library, and I read it. I was like, I'm not gonna pay for this. It is well done. It is a good book, but it's just as an Arab, it's showing like the bad sides of our culture. And I was just like, it reminded me of something I've heard. Man, I forgot who the comedian was, but there was maybe it was Paul Mooney. He's a famous African American comedian.
Yeah,
Uh,
I know Paul Mooney. He wrote
he's
for Chappelle, but even way before that, he wrote for Richard Pryor.
Yeah, okay, so you know exactly who he is. He's from Oakland. And I got to see him live. He used to do like New Year's live shows. He used to help get funds for like the Black Repertory Theater out here. It was nice seeing him. But
A
he,
very funny guy.
yeah, I think it was him that said this. He was talking about some movie. I think it was Precious, and that's about this African American girl that's just like a teen. She's a teenager, and she ends up being like a pregnant mother, and she's a difficult time with her mom. And it's a rough story, and I think like everybody's like, oh, it's amazing, this and that. And Paul Mooney was like, hide that. Nobody needs to see, like our culture, like shine a spotlight on it. Don't shine a bad negative light on it. There's enough of that out there. And with my book, that's what I wanted to do. I'm like, I want to shine a good, positive spotlight out there because I think there's enough negativity about my culture and my faith that's out there. Nitty gritty or not, or realistic or not, I want to show the positive light of what my culture has to offer. So that's what I went about. But that said, Arab of the Future, still a good book, but it's just, it's really weird because this guy, I don't know a lot about him personally, but he grew up in like France.
He's also
He had a
he's
weird
also
relationship.
half Arab because his mom's Parisian or French or something.
Yeah, yeah. Brittany, I don't know what that means.
Oh, Brittany, it's an area in France that's
Okay.
very pretty. I haven't been there. I've been to Paris, but I haven't been to Brittany. If you watch like French movies and stuff, people are always going to Brittany.
So she's his mother is French, and it's really weird in the book. She just kind of like goes along with everything the father says, and they move to like Libya, and then he gets a job in Syria where his father is from, and he goes to Syria, and he just shows like, oh man, this is like rough living when they can be living nicely in France. So I think there's along with like I've always been recommended these things that are just like anti my culture, like
Mhm.
Persepolis, right? She escapes the Iranian regime, and then grows up and does her own thing in like Europe. There's also what's his name? I think he's Pakistani. There's this movie called The Big Sick. If you've ever heard of that one, it
I
was it
have
was it was the guy he played at the Marvels. He's the Pakistani dude that was in the Eternals movie. What's that guy's name?
okay. Don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the Marvel movies personally.
Okay.
That's
Well, the Eternals guy, one of the Eternals guy, he was in this movie called The Big Sick, and he kind of just like turns his back to his faith and his culture for his girlfriend. And it's just always weird. Like people will recommend these. I'm like, I want to see something that makes us look good and people are, in a positive light in our culture that aren't trying to escape it for negative reasons. I want them to, where are all the good Muslim families? Where is that? And I'm still waiting to get recommendations for that. Thankfully though, with Almost Sunset, being a little bit more like into the Arab culture, I've gotten to meet like some Arab authors now and in touch with people and finding things that are really great. So I am that has been a very big positive for me working on the book. So I'm happy about that for sure.
sure. Did you, while you were working on the book, ever run into obstacles where you were like, I have this urge to write or draw this stuff that's a bit more gritty and negative, but I shouldn't do that? Or was anybody influencing you one way or the other, and you had to push back and say, no, I want to portray this in a much more wholesome light?
No, Harper was really good. They let me do whatever I wanted to do, and I also think it's partially because it's based off of my own family. Like it's not autobio, but it's close to it. So they didn't really say too much. They left me to my own design. And even when they tried to correct me, I go back and be like, no, no, this is how we say it. In my house, it's a dialect thing or something like that. Um, yeah, it was great as far as that goes. And then as far as like nitty gritty or anything like that, it was a kid's book. And I think I'm good enough where it's like, I can know where the line is on that, or making it more adult or something like that. So that was never an issue for me.
When you were growing up, like you were born in Oakland, is that correct?
Yeah, just outside of Oakland, but I claim I'm an Oakland native. But like the next city over, that's where the hospital is. We lived on the edge of Oakland.
Did you have any tensions? I don't mean in terms of your culture being recognized or your identity being recognized at school, but did you have tensions with your parents about some of this stuff, about culture or expectations?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. As you mean, just growing up as a kid?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. My parents hated that I liked what I liked. They did not like the fact that I liked comic books. They did not like the fact that I liked horror stories. They did not like the fact that I would spend a lot more time reading certain things I took out of the library instead of studying to get ahead, stuff like that. And then they certainly were very controlling about what I could watch on TV or movies.
If you don't mind me asking, I'm guessing you're Indian, but I'm not 100% sure. Is that
I'm Tamil. Do you know what
no?
Tamils are? Okay, so a lot of times when people say Tamil, what they mean is they mean Tamil from Sri Lanka because the
Okay,
Tamils are a minority there who were oppressed by the Sinhalese and there was a long-standing civil war. There are Tamils and many of them who come from India, but Tamils from India sort of identify as Indian. Whereas Tamils from Sri Lanka identify as Tamils because they don't want to be conflated with Sri Lankans and the hegemony that the Sinhalese have and the history of all of that. So a lot of Tamils during the war just ended up fleeing as refugees. And I was about four, turning five when I joined my parents in England. And then the Civil War broke out, so we couldn't go back. And then after my dad finished studying there, we lived in Peru briefly, and then we ended up in Canada. So we moved around a lot.
wow, yeah, that's
Yeah.
and like not just like a little bit, like next country over. You guys like ping ponged around the world. That's incredible. Uh,
Yeah. And so one of the things I wanted to ask you was about the Muslim community that your family would have been part of when you were a kid. Because, like, when we were living in England, for example, in the town where we were living, there were no other Tamils at my school. And obviously in Peru, there were no other Tamils, period. I think we might have been the only ones in the whole country. And then in Canada, eventually a lot of Tamils settled around where we lived, but we were sort of like part of that first wave. So I wasn't really meeting a lot in school. And so for me, a big part of me was very Western and glommed onto things like pop culture, comics, etc. And so I was wondering, I don't
yeah,
know, what was it like for
yeah,
you?
yeah. They as far as my parents, they were pretty cool. I gotta say, like I ended up going to like an art school, but they didn't understand me. I still think they don't really understand
You,
me.
you went to an art high school or an
I went
elementary
to
school?
art college. High school was like a normal high school.
Yeah.
The Muslim community, the Arab, and then specifically Yemeni community out here wasn't very large. We had maybe like two, three families nearby us. We would get together on the weekends. I would call those people like my aunties and my uncles, even though we're not related.
Sure.
Uh, yeah, it was fun times, but yeah, we were definitely a minority within a minority within a minority, and yeah, for me, like I went to school in Oakland. It was like predominantly African American. I was put in ESL when I was a kid. I didn't need it. I was born and raised here, but they were like, "We'll put you in the ESL class. That's
I had
English."
that experience too. They realized within a couple of classes that my English was really good, but
But I didn't say anything because we got to watch cartoons in there, like Sesame Street, that kind of stuff, and we got to like have parties every other week while the other kids are like doing homework. So I was just like, this is chill. I'm good. I'm gonna hang out with like Ranjit and Raphael and be cool. I'm good.
Yeah. But at some point, you must have realized you want to be an artist, and you must have wanted to buck whatever expectations your parents had of you. Because I'm sure your parents weren't saying, "Hey, go into art. It's going to be great."
I don't think I also graduated a little bit early. Like they put me in school really early. They experimented a lot on me as a kid. I'm the second oldest. My older brother was like in the Middle East. He came when he was 8, and I was like their first kid here in the States. And they were just like, well, let's just put him in school. Back then, it was like super simple. It was like early '80s, so they just took me to school one day. I was like still 4, like really early. I think you should be at least 5 now. Like my kids are a lot older. You know, I was way young for what I was doing. By the time I hit college, I still didn't know a lot of expectations of what art school would be like, or art in general, or an art career even. And this is pre-internet days, so like none of us knew what to expect. I just knew that I really loved making art. I love to draw. I love to paint. I love to, doodle all the time. And I just knew there was something there that I wanted to be doing. And I was doing that in elementary school. Like I was
I just
drawing.
have to say, I saw that talk you did at the mosque, and I saw slides of your paintings, and they're great. I was surprised because they're very different in sensibility than your cartooning style.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
um, I
whether
went,
that's this graphic novel or Unordinary Ladies, it's very different from those books. And I'd love to see you do a graphic novel just painted
oh,
someday if you got the stamina to do that. I don't know, but
that's an insanely tall ask. I don't know, man. One day, you know what? I do have like
just make it 15 pages long.
maybe that I can do. I'm always pushing myself in different ways. Like I said earlier, like I knew this was a kid's story, but I also know like I talked to you earlier about an adult story, right? So I know which way to go or what to do or how to make it look different. Same thing with like my paintings. I've never really been like the best student or the best judge. I'm just like I know I like this, so I'm going to do this. Same thing with maybe some of the paintings that you saw, or like some of the paintings on my Instagram or something like that, where I posted and I'm like, yeah, the teacher didn't like this, but I liked it a lot. Like, I don't care what that teacher thought.
Well,
As a horrible student.
we must be about the same age. Can I ask how old you are, or is that private?
I think I'm 47,
Okay,
70.
I'm turning 50 this year. But for our generation, when you were saying to people, when you were young, that you were into comics or that comics was art, or heaven forbid, you wanted to be a cartoonist, nobody took you seriously. Did you experience that in art school?
Yeah, we didn't talk about it in art school.
Yeah,
I
because
don't think
you're
that was a
supposed to
pat.
be a serious artist.
Yeah, yeah. I think you were still looked down upon. And I went to a more commercial school still, where it was like they had an animation program, but they didn't have like a like
Right.
a serious cartooning or
Yeah.
kind of direction. The one story class that I took, like I waited to the last year to take like comics. They had like comics 101 or something like that. By my last year, everybody had taken it and they didn't have enough enrollment for that class, so they didn't offer it. I was so mad. But
Mm.
I ended up taking story with a Pixar storyboard artist because they were out here in the Bay Area too. And that guy was phenomenal. I took his class once officially, and then once I sat in it all the time. And he was great. I learned everything from that guy. His name was Rob Gibbs. He's since passed away, but he was a great story artist, and he taught me pretty much everything I know about storytelling. So.
I was wondering if you had a bit of animation in your past, because I think when I look at Almost Sunset, there is that kind of feel like, sometimes you look at comics that have been put out by people who went to animation school, and it's got a certain look. And I feel like yours could kind of fall a little bit into that look. Very simplified, very cartoony, very direct cartooning, very much about motion and movement. You've got lots of pages when there's little or just no words at all.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've been getting that a lot in the reviews. Like people are saying it's for those what do they call them? Reluctant readers. And I was like,
They say that about all comics. It's for reluctant readers. It's another way of saying, here's something for the illiterate people.
not if you're reading a Claremont comic, right? Not if you're reading like some old X-Men comic. Those are just those are
Those were dense, those were overwritten, but I was never a big Claremont fan.
I'm not. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, ugh.
I come from the Miller School where he knew how to just sing with images,
Yeah.
right? Just a beautiful balance between words and images. But anyway, sorry, go on.
No, that's what I was trying to do with not to compare myself to Miller or anybody else, but it was more like, this is how a comic should be, where like there are parts that you need to have speaking parts, and there are parts that are just the imagery is going to carry everything on. I didn't really plan it to be for reluctant readers. The only thing I really planned on for Almost Sunset was that I wanted to be one of those books that you can kind of hold on to and get your money's worth, and like I'm gonna keep reading this. I'm gonna read it over and over, and I'm gonna enjoy it, like thoroughly soak it. You ever have one of those books that's like well read? That's what I
Yeah.
wanted it to be. I wanted it to be a well read book. I didn't want it to be pristine. I wanted you to just carry it with you all the time. And like, if you want to just look at the pictures, then look at the pictures. And if you wanted to, read it, then you can read it too.
Yeah, I think the cartooning works really well. It flows really well. I personally just like ripped through it. I don't know if that's quite what you mean. I think you're talking about something a little bit different. You're talking about rereading it. But for me, just the fact that I was able to just like move through it really fast was a good thing, and not because I was bored, but because the cartooning worked really well. There's a real dynamism about it, like not really like Kirby, but sort of like a Kirby kind of thing, like let's say Kirby light. There's that kind of energy, but it's not that superhero thing where everything is power. It's more just the kids are always running, or like the facial expressions, or there's always some kind of tension, and they're always moving from one space to another, and that helps
And
the reader, I think, move through the book
there's a
really
lot of
well.
energy to it. I hope
Yeah,
there's a lot of energy to it. Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
As far as style goes or anything like that, I think it's like John Romita Jr. says, like it's the get it done style. Because I was I was working under the clock, like I gotta finish this before a certain time to hit a holiday, right? Because it's a Ramadan book. So I was like,
Right.
okay, I gotta make sure that this comes out for Ramadan 2025. Then I have to finish when they tell me to finish. So I was under the gun to finish that 224 page graphic novel.
How many years did it take you to do this?
Altogether, it took me a little over 3 years, maybe. Yeah,
And you were working like a day job during that time, or?
yeah, I was working a day job. I was teaching, and I had a day job. I was like delivering potato chips back in the day. So I was doing a lot. I was working
You
a
were
lot.
delivering potato chips when you began this graphic novel?
Yeah, yeah. That
At
was
what point did you say you could let that go?
um when I
And what
started to
was it that allowed you to let that go?
when I started juggling everything. So I was like teaching online, and I was doing this, and I was like, I need to drop something.
What
And
do
I
you
was like,
teach?
I teach with an online school called storyboardart.org,
Mhm.
and they teach storyboarding. So yeah, some of my storyboarding background of what I learned in school carries over to that. But I was like, whoa, there's just too much right now. What do I let go of? And I was like, okay, I'll let go of the day job that I've had forever. Finally, like, I finally let it go. So now I'm trying to work in comics full time, working on the next book. Just turned in layouts for the next one last week, so I'm excited about that. So yeah,
You just turned in the layouts for your next book. Do you want to talk about what it's about?
sure. So this one is more not nothing to do with the last book, but same kind of realm of like kids in school. My publisher was like, you can do whatever you want, just make sure it's within the same realm, like no sci-fi or fantasy or anything like that. And it's about kids growing apart and realizing their friendship goes different ways, because I think that's an important lesson to learn. Sometimes as guys, we have like relationships that last too long, or like, that's my buddy. He's been like that forever, even though he's like a jerk or whatnot, or
Mhm.
Um, and not that these kids are jerks or anything like that, but I just want to show that they have gradually shifted in what they like and what they want out of life, and uh, hopefully I did it justice by having it being a mutual breakup where it's nobody's fault. So I hope I did that well. We'll see.
How old are the kids in the book?
Same grade level, like around seventh grade. So it's like junior high hijinks.
Is this book the same length approximately?
Yes, it's a yes. For now, it is. Yeah. The way
So
my
you're looking at another 3 years
oh,
potentially.
I'm trying to work faster now that I like one. I already had this idea, whereas the Almost Sunset I was still working out the idea. So that overall took 3 years to even get the idea together.
Hmm.
It wasn't like already there in my head. I was like, okay, what am I going to do for this? What are we trying to sell here? Whereas the tentative title for this is called Run Its Course. Whereas Run Its Course, I was like, this is what I want to do for the next one. And I hit the ground running with that one. So hopefully it's not going to take me that
When I was in high school, I had a friend who was Egyptian. I can't remember if he was born in Egypt or he was born here. I want to say he was born in Egypt and then left when he was very young. Um, and then we grew apart because he wasn't religious at all. He was really into music, into movies, into comics, what have you. And then he just really swung the other way towards the end of high school. He became super religious. And for a long time, I was the only non-Muslim friend he still had any association with, partly because he was trying to convert me,
one.
but I was the only one. And there was a bond there. He helped me, during a couple of really difficult times. And I was thinking about that as I was reading your book, because I don't know, it just,
Because it just reminded you of those times.
yeah, I think it's hard not to think about my Islamic friend, Mustafa. And I know he's still around somewhere, but he's just super deep into that community. Like later on in life, he went to study in Syria and stuff, and he spent a lot of time with imams and we met a couple of times, like later on in life. Like now I'm over it, but it took me a long time of just kind of feeling sad and wishing I could rekindle that. And now when you mention this whole thing about as guys, it's hard to kind of divorce ourselves from the bro code. Like this thing about this bond and friendship. I was going to say bond ship. This bond ship sounds like James Bond. This bond ship is like supremely important to us, and we bond through these odd things, like say comics,
Yeah.
um, in an odd way that women don't. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a funny I made sure to include it. There's a scene in my book. It shows when the kids meet for the first time, and one of them has a flashback to kindergarten the first day, and they bond over some stupid cartoon show, right? So it's just like that's what they bonded over. That was the thing, and that they just had mutual love for the show, and that made them best friends. It's kind of like I think that movie. I don't know if you've ever seen it, that stupid movie Step Brothers with
I
Will
love
Ferrell.
that movie. I love that movie so much, partly because those two guys have such a good dynamic. If you get a chance after the interview,
Uh,
go to YouTube and find the thing where they're trying to caption New Yorker cartoon contests. Like, the thing where you're given an image for those
yeah,
New
yeah,
Yorker cartoons and you have to come up with like an amazing caption for it.
that was in
It,
the movie.
it no, no, no. It's just like this thing that the New Yorker did where
Oh,
they'd get random people, usually comedians,
okay.
to do it. And for them, they have them together, and theirs are brilliant. Their just comfortability with each other
Yeah,
is just phenomenal.
yeah.
And
So
I think it's once again this bondship thing, right?
yeah.
They have this incredible bondship. Anyway, sorry, go on. Yeah, Step Brothers.
There's the scene where John C. and Will Ferrell are like they're arguing like for the whole, I don't know, since they meet in the movie, and then at one point they realize they like each other, or they like the same stuff, and then one of them was like, "Did we just become best friends?" And he's like, "I think we did." It's just that's how I don't know, not to boil down male friendship, but there is some truth to that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I just try to reflect that a little bit in my book. And I remember American Born Chinese has a scene like that too. My friend Gene, he did a scene like that where like the Chinese immigrant kid has like this cool robot toy, and then the American Chinese kid that didn't want to talk to him, sees the toy, and then they bond over that. I don't know what it is about us, man, but that's
Well,
how guys work, I guess.
I think what it is, and we're talking about people who are largely hetero here, right? So we have to kind of make the distinction between, say, growing up gay or whatever, something like that. But if you're hetero and say, I'm really simplifying here. I don't mean to, but like I've seen women connect. Like my take on it, my very kind of reduced take, which I apologize for, is that for women, it's very important for them to feel like they're bonding emotionally. And I think both men and women are kind of anxious, at least subconsciously. For women, like you see this excitement when they kind of agree or are on the same wavelength and are bonding. But for guys, they can't do that explicitly. They want to do it. They're anxious. They want to make sure they're regarded well and like the structure is in place. But you have to do it kind of in this roundabout way. You bond through sports. You bond through, I don't know, maybe talking about political opinions. You bond through culture and TV shows, why something is great. It's this roundabout way of doing it, but it's equally vulnerable and important. Yeah,
Yes, and also I think with like what I'm working on the book too, it sometimes goes on for too long, and we don't know, as guys, we don't know how to end relationships that maybe should end, and like,
because you are kind of dependent on it. You get invested in it in a certain way.
but if it's not working, right? That's the thing. So like, if there's a good relationship, that's fine. But if there's a relationship
Yeah,
that isn't really working, or like, things are too different now, sometimes we get attached to just like, oh man, I grew up on Transformers. That's it. Like, let's be friends forever about Transformers. Even
absolutely,
or
absolutely.
like I grew
Yeah.
up. I'm a Raiders fan, right? I'm like liver, you know, live or die, black and silver. Even though they're not in Oakland anymore, it's it's a weird way to live life. And I just want to show kids that there might be a different path, and like it's okay to let go of some people, some friendships mutually, even. It's not a bad thing. So
Sure.
hopefully I did it. Hopefully we'll see what my editor says.
Coming up, evaluating 1990s image comics, the potential clash between Islamic law and being a comics artist, and more. This podcast is part of the Deconstructing Comics Network, where we're grateful to our supporters on Patreon. Patrons get exclusive extra content. Pledge $2 a month or more and get Batman 66 podcast Bat Bits, where we've recently gone over an early draft of Rick Vollard's script for As the Bookworm Turns, and we'll be digging into a variety of documents from the files of William Dozier, producer of Batman and the Green Hornet, including his correspondence with Bruce Lee and more Season 1 Batman scripts. At $4 a month, you also get our monthly show Silver Age Batman, where I'm moving through the book Batman in the 50s issue by issue with a rotating second chair of Paul, Emmett, Patrick, or Kumar. Follow our Patreon for free and you can hear the first 2 episodes of both Bat Bits and Silver Age Batman. Check it out at patreon.com/deconcomics, and thanks for your support.
Hello, I'm Ken Holzhauser, and if you're looking for something new in comic books, may I recommend my newest comic, The Quick and the Dad, a love letter to the DC, Marvel, Archie, and Harvey comics of my youth. This comic has everything. It has spaceships, dad jokes, alien invasions, time travel, supervillains, and so many bad puns. Hopefully you'll like it. It's the cutest comic you've never heard of, and it's available today in print and digital from indieplanet.com. That's The Quick and the Dad. Join that other dynamic duo, won't you?
Well, just speaking about friends, you mentioned Jean Lewin Yang as kind of being somebody that you knew growing up. Did you know Tomine? Did you know Jaime Hernandez? Like those guys?
No, Gene and I are closer in age than those guys. Those are like
Tomine's our age, believe it or not. He's only a year older than me.
Jaime.
No, Adrian Tomine.
Oh yeah, yeah. I can kind of see that. I don't think he's from around here though. I think he's like a little bit
He's from
further out.
like Berkeley, around Berkeley.
I think he moved though. I think he was like in Sacramento. I can't be sure though.
Right, right.
Some of my friends might know him, but I don't personally know him. I
Right.
liked his last book, and I can totally relate. Like he's, sitting there showing his Spider-Man comics to the class, and they don't get it or whatever. But yeah, he's.
He was also kind of a prodigy, right? Like he was drawing comics in high school, like mini comics, and he got his gig with Drawn Quarterly like when he was an undergrad, which is incredible,
Yeah.
right? In undergrad, I had no clue who I was.
Yeah, I think early on, in my friend circle, we were like passing his work around. I was still super into the superhero stuff, so I wasn't really drawn to Tomine's work. I understood that he was, really good and a genius,
Mhm.
but it wasn't for me necessarily. But yeah, I can see he was an amazing talent. But like I said, I still haven't met him to today. Like I haven't even seen him at a convention or anything like that. So
Well, he's also just very, like, I don't know what the right word is, averse to that kind of fan engagement. He kind
uh,
of looks at you very skeptically and almost like he doesn't want to be there. But yeah, tell me a little bit more about the scene that you kind of went through or that you found. Like, how did you go from being a storyboard person to wanting to be a cartoonist and kind of finding your center there?
it was a little it's backwards. So I always wanted to be a cartoonist or comic kind of guy. I
From like
found
high school on?
throughout, I think even earlier than that, like and and I honestly think a lot of it is like married together with animation with like Alex Toth.
I
Um,
love those. Who doesn't?
yeah, but like his design work was like all over the cartoons that we watched, right?
Mhm.
So I see that,
Absolutely.
and then I see the comics, and I'm just like, oh, there's something about all of this that is kind of, I like all of it. I don't know what it was when I was a kid, but it was, I was absolutely drawn to it, and I think it was a big part of that. I think some of my favorite influences are him, and then later on, like John Paul Leon, just their stark, like black and white. You don't know Leon? You're shaking your head.
Oh, yeah, no, and I know who you're talking about, the guy who
Okay,
passed away. I
yeah,
just didn't recognize the name as you were
okay,
pronouncing it.
okay. Yeah, so there's something about their art with the ink, and I just loved it. And
Yeah, and like Leon is, there's a lot of Mazzucchelli in him, right? But people kind of said Mazzucchelli was doing Toth when he did year one, although he kind of talks more about Milton Caniff as the bigger influence and so on.
yeah, all those old school guys, right? I think they're just genius. It doesn't matter who influenced who, but all of them are really fascinating. I grew up. My parents had a corner store out here in Oakland, and one of my jobs was like getting the newspapers. We had like a newspaper box because those are delivered like really early in the morning. And my job when I would come on the weekends with my parents, I would go and get all the newspapers and put them on our newspaper stand so we can sell them. Um, and on the weekends, they would have comics wrapping around out here in the Bay Area. The comics would be on the outside of the newspaper, so that would be the front, and you would see it. It was really beautiful, colored, just comics on a big stack, a thick Sunday newspaper. So I would do that, and then I would grab one of the papers and I would read cover to cover all the extended comics that they have in the regular dailies. They had like maybe a page or two, but in the Sundays it was like a whole section dedicated to comic, and it was
Not
every.
just that, but on Sundays, at least where I was, they'd also have the black and white section. So it felt like a double thing for me. Like, and I never understood why. I never understood why they'd have the regular black and white strip and also the color supplement, but I wasn't complaining. It's just, it
But
was almost like it was like this mistake, that you,
it was extra, right? There was a lot of
yeah.
extra comics on the weekends, so it would be nice, and I would see all of that. But the thing that really struck me too about comics in general was like all the different styles that you would find within that. In our area, we had like Beetle Bailey, Blondie, Garfield, Lockhorns, Marmaduke, Dennis the Menace, Family Circus, Kathy, Rhymes with Orange, Bizarro. It's just all these different Sally Forth. What else? Prince Valiant. So you would see Prince Valiant next to Garfield.
You
Totally.
got Prince Valiant. We never got Prince Valiant. We got Peanuts.
You got Peanuts. We got Peanuts for sure, but we also got Prince Valiant. It was a really big, thick section.
Wow.
Calvin and Hobbes. So you would see all these different styles, and you would be like, "Wow, comics is amazing. You can do anything in comics. Like this looks super serious over here. This looks super cartoony. I don't understand what Kathy is talking about, but it looks really silly, and she's
Okay,
crying.
Kathy doesn't understand what Kathy's talking about either.
So, I probably shouldn't have been reading Kathy, right? I wasn't the target audience, but I was
But
reading
you
it.
couldn't help it because it was comics and you had to read it. Anything that was like a comic, if it was on a billboard, a pamphlet at the doctor's office, you had to read it.
So yeah, so seeing the comics like side by side in all the different styles, it really drew me to that as a kid, and it just never went away. And it's one of the easier like art forms to do. Like I didn't need paints; I could just
Yeah.
pick up a pencil or pen and ink, and and just get to it. So it was
Did
really
you
accessible.
did you want to be like a Marvel cartoonist? Because obviously the Marvel comics were a big thing for you, right?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, I'd still love to work at something like that in some capacity. But I'm probably not as
Were you big on
as I should be.
Image? Because you're a few years younger than me. Image is what turned me off superheroes, but you might have kind of been right in the thick of that. I don't know.
Even like right before that, like I was a little bit different. Like I would go for like the quirky heroes. So like my friends, I would still pick up X-Men because my friends were reading it, or
Mhm.
Rob Liefeld's X-Force, but I wasn't enjoying it. I was just keeping up with my buddies.
Sure.
But I was reading things like Sleepwalker. It was like a favorite for me, and that was like, oh man, what's Brett Blevins? His stuff is like, he wasn't cross hatching. It was all solid shapes, really beautiful art form to the figures and stuff like that. I liked Mike Manley. He worked on Darkhawk, and those are also characters that came out around the time that I started reading the superhero stuff. But they were like more traditional looking artists,
Mhm.
without the cross hatching kind of stuff. I really loved the Ghost Rider of the '90s. That was really thick. It was done on like thick paper, really thick black ink. It was just so different than anything else that was out there. It was not X-Men. It was not.
Yeah, we were talking about that on a Facebook post because I just saw that image and I had to share it because it really brought back that nostalgia for those early Texera Salteris issues for me. Once Salteris stopped inking him and it was just Texera, it was just too heavy for me. It was too much of a heavy line or whatever. It was too chunky, too forceful. But the combination of both of them was beautiful, especially with those, gritty kind of Jansen like tones.
But you can see how he differs from like the Image guys, right? Like
Absolutely. And is a better artist, just sorry to say, because the image guys never really like thought about storytelling or
he
variation of expression or anything like that.
he ended
You
up
know?
going he ended up going to Image later on. You probably already dropped out of comics by then, but he ended up
Yeah.
going to Image and doing something called Union, I think, and it lasted like a couple of issues. Um,
Well, around the end of high school for me, when that stuff was, really taking off, was when I discovered Alan Moore, older Frank Miller, and Jaime Hernandez. And if not for that, I would have walked away from comics. But that stuff like really revitalized me and it's like stayed with me all my life, an enduring love for like people like that. And then later the real indie stuff like Peter Bagg and Dan Close and all of that stuff. But especially Jaime, like the stories, especially, and they each did it in their own way, just like you were talking about the newspaper strips. They each had their own style, rhythm, sensibility, concerns, and they were all equally brilliant.
yeah, I still think a lot of that. There's a lot of good people that are out there now that are just getting started. I don't think it's ever been better in any.
Yeah, yeah. And there's become a real love for the medium. Like, I don't think the image guys really loved the medium in the same way. They liked the superheroes they drew, they liked the power, they liked Kirby, but they didn't take that kind of love for the medium that Kirby or Ditko, or like you said, Toth had, and translate that. Like that didn't get into their blood. But you see the people now, and they've had the benefit of that cultural education, whether just even like being able to pick up this stuff in the library, which blows my mind. When I was a kid, that was never a possibility. So money was a real barrier. My parents objecting to stuff was a real barrier. But now you can access this stuff, the length and breadth of comics and cartooning. Also, not even in English. Like you can look at all the great Argentinian or Filipino or European artists or what have you. Sorry,
No,
going off on tangent. But yeah, like when you see cartoonists that really love cartooning, it's hard not to like their stuff.
I think the image guys probably love it more than you think, though. My favorite out of the lot of the original of them was Eric Larson, and I think he really loves cartooning. Like he's a Bay Area guy, so I've run into him, every now and again. I've seen his art, like
He seems very grouchy online, and I'll be honest, I wonder sometimes if he's on the spectrum. Is he like that in person?
maybe we all are. I don't assume
I don't
anything.
know, man, but
Just
yeah, no, I
as far as cartooning, I'm just saying as far as cartooning goes, and I think the time that you were dropping out of comics, I never dropped out, and I think a lot of my friends are like maybe a few years older than me, so
Hmm.
maybe 50 like yourself. And I remember in college, they were all asking me like, "What are you reading right now? Like, what is even to read right now?" And I'd be like, "Oh man, Savage Dragon is fantastic." But he was doing all these things that were experimental. Like he looked more like a cartoonist than like a comic book artist than the other guys, I think. But
Sure.
that's not to say that the other ones aren't. I think like when I was working on Almost Sunset, one of my favorite things to do was like as I'm like inking late at night or drawing or coloring, I would turn on like Jim Lee's YouTube channel or his Twitch stream or whatever, and he's just sitting there for the most part quiet. So that was one of my favorite channels, like ASMR type stuff. And every once in a while he would talk, but I mean he's not phoning it in or anything. Like he knows his cartooning history, his comics history. I think you might not be giving them as much credit as they should be getting. They also changed the industry. They were like one of the first like independent people to do what they were doing. It was insane. I think the amount of money that they were dealing with puts them in a whole other stratosphere because it was like rock star type, pop star type stuff.
Yeah,
But
we're going to disagree about this, but that's fine. I think that's totally fine. And let's not get sidetracked into whatever our aesthetic preferences, because once I get going, I can really kind of rail against this stuff. But yeah, let me go back to one of my questions for you, just because I can feel myself starting to kind of pick at Jim Lee and Larson in my mind. Like what? See, the funny thing was, like, I loved comics as a kid. I loved them so much. Just seeing them on the rack, their unattainability largely for us because we didn't have a lot of money. Blah blah blah. I get to grade 9, and I was a bit late to jump on the bandwagon, but I just became obsessed with Todd McFarlane because McFarlane did not draw like the way these other artists did that had come out of the 70s that were influenced by Neil Adams and Dick Giordano and people like that. And I liked his stuff so much because it was so cartoony and so extreme in a way. And it just really appealed to that as I was going through puberty, all these weird, changes and sensibilities in myself. But now when I look at it, the only thing I like about it is the Spider-Man, like in costume, in this sprawled, weird pose, like the way he draws people, their poses, the storytelling. It gives me a headache. But when I look at Hergé's stuff, 1010, I loved 1010 when I was a kid. I still look at that and it's like magic to me. It's like I just think it's somebody on, like the way you just talked about the image guys, like being in a stratosphere, like that's the way I feel about Hergé. That's the way I feel about Toth. That's the way I feel about Mazzucchelli. That's the way I feel about all these
well,
people who.
I meant as far as them. I meant as far as stratosphere as as far as
Business
like
people.
business part of it, like the money part of it was insane. So when you say like, oh, they didn't have the magic or the history to it, I think they were dealing with like a whole other aspect that like none of those guys
They
that you
became
mentioned.
millionaires when they were really young, and I don't know if that was good for them because they couldn't put out books on time. They didn't understand what writing was. They just thought it was all about, throwing splashes and pinups, and they all had the same expressions. Even Jim Lee, who might be one of the best of them, art-wise, it's always like, "Grr," like that's his thing. And I don't see much variation in pose or expression or whatever. Anyway, let's not go down this road because if we do, it's going to eat up your interview.
I just wanna add, like you asked me, but I really didn't read any of it except for Savage Dragon, like regularly. Maybe I picked up like the first issue or the second issue of whatever, but it wasn't a big thing for me. And I think, like you said, they were having troubles with everything else. But I was a story guy from even back in the day. So like if I really liked the story and the art was mediocre, I was sticking around. So there was that to it. Like
I did
I
like
didn't
the
mind.
issue where the Savage Dragon where God fights the devil. I thought that was like brilliant and lovely when it came out. Do you remember that issue?
I think I stopped reading it by then, but I did read that. As a religious person, as I got some issues with it, but
Of course. It
I
was
got
so provocative. That was its point. The point was we're
yeah,
gonna
and I think he's gotten more provocative over the years. It just seems like I stopped reading it,
sure.
but the early issues were like funny and he was experimenting. He was doing stuff that he had learned, I think, from like Walt Simonson, where he's playing with panel layouts and like the time aspect. Like there was like really fascinating issues of Fantastic Four where he's doing like time travel, and then the panels at the same time are moving around. And I think Eric Larson did some of that kind of stuff where he was, or not necessarily that, but like he did issue all in splash pages, like Walt Simonson's famous Thor issue, where it's like the end of days. I forgot what they call Ragnarok. There's a Ragnarok issue where like all splash pages. Eric Larson did the same early on in his run of Savage. So there's all these like fun little like cartoonist things that he was doing that were in his book that I didn't see like in other Image books. But it's always been fun doing that kind of stuff. And like I have a friend that is a cartoonist. His name is Jason Shiga, and
Mhm.
that guy is fascinating. Like I met him like years ago, and he's been doing stuff that's just innovative. Like I never thought would have been possible in comics, and it's always really fun to see his books and the kind of things that he does in comics is just incredible. And he'll play with time travel and time. He just released like a few books, and my youngest kid will not let me stop reading it to her. It's a choose your own adventure comic, so it can change all the time, and you can keep reading it over and over. His stuff is just amazing to me, and I'm just like, this guy he's not just a cartoonist, he's like genius and innovator, and I love stuff like that, and I've always been drawn to that. It's
How
not
do
always just
how do I
art.
spell his name? I'm gonna have to look him up now since you recommended him.
Shiga. That's his last name, and then
And
just
Jason,
Jason.
right?
I'm surprised you have not heard of this guy. He's
There's
an Eisner
there's
winner.
there's a lot I'm just not aware of. And it's funny for somebody who likes the comic form as much as I do, there's a lot of newer stuff I just don't know anything about. Um, Partly because I might be aging out. Who knows? Whatever. I'm getting
Uh,
slow.
he's been around for a long time. He his biggest book is called Meanwhile. It was a choose your own adventure book, and there's a time travel aspect to that book as well.
Yeah.
It's just super fun how it's put together. And he's done other stuff. He's put together like a binary comic where it's like you flip zeros and ones to make the comic kind of keep moving. He's done
So
straight
is this
narrative.
digital then? Does he just do digital stuff?
No, this is like he actually produced it. It's an actual book. I think it's like in I don't know how many different languages now. You can find it anywhere. I think it's like available in French and all other kind of languages. It's really fascinating. It's a really interesting book. And I don't want to give away too much because the story kind of unfolds while you read it. But it
Sure.
starts off. You get a choice of you go to like a ice cream shop and you can either have a chocolate or a vanilla ice cream cone, and depending on which one you pick, your story just kind of goes off the rails from there. But
Fantastic.
he's an innovator, and I was like that kind of stuff. I was reading stuff that was different. I think when you dropped out, like even Marvel was doing stuff that was different. Like, oh man, I forget the name, but like they had like it was more like an indie zine kind of thing with Generation X. I forgot his name, man, but it looks so cool and so different. There was so much fun stuff, and I think it all like boiled into my comics. College helped too, where I was in like a sci-fi fantasy class, and I was reading like like I don't know, all the stuff that was in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I was reading it in class, and that kind of translated. I'm from the Bay Area, so there's like this indie scene that's there. I knew who Robert Crumb was when I was younger, so like all this stuff kind of just compressed into me. I don't think I could say I hate anything, and I'll give anything a shot, even the Image guys. So
Fair enough.
there's my for that.
No, that's a good attitude for somebody who wants to study and practice comics, absorb everything.
Yeah.
I have a question that is kind of a heavy one, but I want to ask you. I was watching the recording of you talking at the mosque about your book and answering questions, mostly from the kids. And at one point, I think the adult who was moderating the event off screen made a brief comment about drawing people. And then you made a very kind of gracious apology, but you said you don't intend to offend anybody or the faith by doing this. You hope it's there to educate and to help it along. If you're doing it in ignorance, you apologize. I was just wondering about that because, I mentioned my friend Mustafa from high school, and that was one thing he told me. Like he had, no problems with comics before, and then once he became religious, and I was drawing and I was doing art, and he kind of had to raise the fact that in Islam, you're not supposed to represent anything that's living because only God can do that. So I was just wondering, how do you deal with that kind of contradiction? And everything we've been talking about just a few minutes ago, from the Savage Dragon to Crumb to whatever, a lot of that's going to fly in the face of Islamic teaching, I'm sure, to some degree. How do you deal with that tension? Because it seems from your book and from the video of the talk I've watched you do at the mosque that you are a fairly religious person. Yeah.
All right, so let me see how do I answer this. One, I was worried about it before I was putting it out. Like I was like, oh, I don't know how this is going to be received by my community, my Muslim community, my Yemeni community. But thankfully, everything has been fantastic. I'll say that first and foremost. I was absolutely thrilled by the reception from the religious world and as well as the secular world. I could not be happier with how Almost Sunset turned out. So that is that. As far as me doing art, I've always had like an odd relative here and there, be like, oh, you shouldn't draw. That's haram. It's sinful. But I'll say, like, are you religious at all, or
I am
anything?
not. So I've dealt with this problem in my own culture and background by just going in the opposite direction to the point where I don't think Tamils largely want to read my writing because sometimes it can be quite critical of the contradictions or the hypocrisies or what have you.
Of what
Um,
though? Of their religion, or
Long Civil War, the Tamil Tigers, you may or may not have heard of them, but you got the PLO in Palestine, right? The Tamil Tigers were basically the people who ran the Tamils, forced people to fight, used them as human shields, extorted money from families living abroad. I criticize that because I was not on board for any of that. But my culture, by and large, is very beholden to following orders, and it's a top-down hierarchy. People didn't like that being criticized because they felt they were fighting for our liberation and all of this kind of stuff. So that's one example. I criticize things like, parents hitting their children and being really draconian or
so?
whatever, all of that stuff.
Okay, so I think the reason I asked you if you're religious, like I'm thinking of other people that I know of and how I've dealt with them or how I've asked them. When I used to have coworkers, they would ask me about Muslims and like, oh, don't you get along with all Muslims? I'm like, no, I don't get along with everybody. I remember I asked a coworker a long time ago. He was like a white Christian guy, and I was like, you go to church, right? And he's like, yeah. I was like, do you trust everybody that goes to your church? And he thought about it for like a split second. He was like, no, I don't. And I was like, yeah, and they're religious, right? And he's like, yeah, I kind of get what you're saying now. Just because they're religious doesn't mean they're right or wrong or whatever. Everybody's
Yeah.
still, there's different levels of everything in religion. If you're super strict, almost sunset is not going to be for you. That mosque
Really?
that I was at, it was like really open. It was really nice to be there. All the mosques near me are a lot more conservative. So I was always stressed out about that. But even that, like people were, more welcoming. But as far as drawing people, like even in the Arab world, in modern Arab society, they have Arab cartoons and things like that. They're opening up
Hmm.
animation studios and things like that. So um, I think it's a question that gets asked, but it's like, is it a real serious question or is it like for those hardline, super religious people? I think that's more where
So
that is
by
coming
and large, you're not getting a lot of flack from your community, and it's
from.
not a problem for you internally either.
No, I mean, being religious, there's always like, I did this wrong, I did that wrong. But I think that's like just built into religion in general. You try to be a better person, even if you aren't religious, right? Can you say every little thing that you've done all day long, every day in your life has been like right? Like, are you that perfect of a person? I'm not, calling you out or anything like that, but just in general, like, are you that perfect? Like, even if you're not religious, like I don't know who's that perfect. I've never met that person. So
Sure.
there is absolutely that where you have regret and stuff like that. And I think I kind of show a little bit of that too in Almost Sunset. Like he regrets decisions that he makes and things like that. You want to think about, like there's the scene in the book where he's like eating and then he feels bad about it and he internalizes it, he thinks about it, he regrets it, and then it was like his father is like, you got to let that go and move on and keep trying to do good, keep make the best of what you have right now. So
So
that's absolutely a part of any religion and just life in general.
I know Hassan is supposed to be based on your son. Is the dad supposed to be based on you? Is the mom supposed to be based on your wife?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Because
It's
I
our
don't think the dad looks like you.
no, I don't know. He's bald, has a beard, and a little chubby. That's about
Yeah,
it.
but he's like totally bald on top and he's got like the hair on the side, whereas you've kind of shaved your whole head and you've
Yeah,
definitely got some hair on top. And he's got like a very full beard. So I was like, he just kind of doesn't look like you. I don't know.
it, it was just like I guess idealized how I see myself, or what.
Yeah.
Yeah, more than anything.
Does your wife feel it reflects your family? Is
Uh,
it
for the most part, yeah, I think my whole family like really enjoyed what I came up with. So we were
okay?
all really happy with it. Yeah. And I wouldn't
Good.
put something out that was like, my son didn't enjoy or my wife was like, oh, this doesn't put us in a good light. Like I said, I really wanted to focus on like the positive of everything. Um,
Absolutely, but they didn't feel weird about it. Didn't feel like you were intruding on the
no,
family.
no, not too much. My son, like, I think when I started it, he was still young enough where he was just like, oh, this is super cool. And now he's
Yeah.
just like, he's 16 now. He's like, whatever.
And in the new book, it's not still your son, right? It's
No,
fictional characters, yeah.
fictional characters.
So we're running out of time. Is there anything you want to talk about or you want to mention upcoming appearances? Anything you want to plug or just anything you want to talk about?
Oh, wow. When is this gonna show up?
That's a good question. It might be as early as next week. It depends on what Tim decides. Yeah, Tim's giving the thumbs up. So roughly a week from now, something like that.
This weekend, I know it's going to be too late, but this weekend, I'll be at Zine Fest, or I'll do a talk for Zine Fest. Zine Fest is actually on the 31st, I believe. The SF Zine Fest is a really cool indie kind of comic scene. It's grown over the years. I remember doing it a long time ago when I was really young, but it's grown so much bigger now. It's at one of our major like convention halls, in a smaller wing of it, but it's still there. And then next this weekend, I'll be at Cape and Cal Con. That is in Alameda Brewery, Faction Brewing in Alameda. It's run by the Eisner-winning retail store, Cape and Cal Comics in Oakland. They're an amazing shop out here in Oakland, one of the best in the world. And they're only like a few years old. They're not that old. They've expanded over the years. Eaton is the owner. He has his manager Miles. They run a really great shop. It's a beautiful store. He was a judge last year for the Eisners, and he's been doing Cape and Cal Con for like 3 years now, and it's grown. And they have like some really big guests. I think like some of the headliners are like Rick Remender, Terry Dodson, and maybe a few other people. But there's some fantastic guests. That's a great one. This is going to be this weekend though, so it's going to be too late for the recording. But SF Zine Fest is on the 31st, and then September 14th, the San Francisco Cartoon Art Museum. I'll have a closing reception. I've been there. What is it? Indie showcase artist or something? Emerging artist, I think they call it. Emerging after 20 years. But I have a little exhibit there, and they're going to have a closing reception for me on the 14th, on Sunday the 14th of September. So yeah, I'm pretty busy this month. It's been such a blast, and my comics community has welcomed me with open arms with this book, and I really appreciate that with them.
That's great. Are you getting a lot of invitations to go out to shows far away, like on the East Coast?
Not yet. The one interesting thing that I'll be going to a religious convention. I've never gone to one of those. I'm going to like this large one in Chicago called Mask Inca Con, and it's like a Muslim convention. And I want to just see. I've talked to other friends about like different conventions that they do. Like one friend, he loves horror comics. He'll go to like the horror conventions and do really well. Another guy does stories for kids, so he'll go to like ALA or something like that, and do really well. So I was like, well, let me think outside of the box, and not just that. Like Almost Sunset's done well with the Muslim community and the secular community, but I still feel like the Arabs and the Yemenis still haven't gotten it yet, or they don't know that it's there. So I kind of want to go to this convention to try to find my community and let them know about it, and hopefully they'll enjoy it. I got to get it out to my people that I made it for. So,
well, I hope this show, the Religious Fest, does that for you. Yeah,
I hope so. I've never gone. It's in Chicago. I've never gone that far, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I wish you all the best. I mean, I'm just so happy for you. It's so nice to just see a fellow comics fan suddenly, just blow up with a really great book like this.
Thanks. It's been some time coming. I've been waiting in the wings and doing all this background, but it was getting harder and harder. But now I'm absolutely having a blast, and I want to continue doing it. So I appreciate everybody's involvement and everybody's appreciation of the work that I've done.
Check the show notes for a link to Almost Sunset on Amazon. Follow us on Blue Sky at Decon Comics. On Facebook, we have both a page and a group. Those are linked from deconstructingcomics.com, as is our YouTube channel, where our episodes are posted every week as videos of a single image. You can comment on our episodes on YouTube or on our site, or drop us a line at mail@deconstructingcomics.com, or talk to us. Click the Leave a Voicemail link on the left sidebar of our site. Are you making a comic? Send it to us and we'll do a Critiquing Comics episode about it. Our theme is by J.B. Anderton. The music backing the promotion of our Patreon is Change by Jazar. Next week, I'm joined by Kumar and Jordan from the comic book movie Oblivion podcast to review the Fantastic Four's MCU debut in Fantastic Four First Steps. Till then, this is Tim, and thanks for listening to Deconstructing Comics.